So I don't know if our panelists are here, the colleagues who were with us this morning. I see Joël. I don't know if other persons can come back to answer any relevant questions. I see Clara, Pierluca, and as Stephanie Hiesinger was saying, she couldn't be present for the question and answer session, but we have her colleague Peter Löffler from DG, from the Directorate General for Climate Action, I think, with us, and Angelo Costa also from DG Climate Action. Thank you for joining us, dear colleagues. I also see Anne Vermalen from Cinea's financial unit, but I think the financial questions we will take later, and so it's up to you if you want to stay also for this technical or policy related questions. But thanks for joining. So can we start? I'm afraid that most of the questions will be on how to apply. So Joël, be ready. So first question, is there an application for technical assistance when developing the proposal for the operating grants? For example, when working in 7 different member states, potentially more.
Is that I can answer that. If I know there is
yes.
no technical assistance. Technical assistance is specifically reserved for other types of calls for proposal. There is no technical assistance for developing proposals for the operating grants.
Thank you, Joël. Next, sorry. Next question. Operating grants for NGOs. As the multi-annual financial framework covers 2021-2027 and the next FPA will cover 2025-2026, will there be another FPA only for 2027?
So I think that was already answered by Anne.
I think so, yes.
Yes, exactly. But we can maybe explain again. We're launching in 2024 the call that will cover 25 and 2026. And we will be launching in 2026 the call that will be covering the fiscal year 2027-2028. And the reason for that is that we launch in 2027 and commit money that covers the financial year 2028. So pending confirmation of the next multi-annual work program, the next framework partnership agreement should be for 2 years as well.
Yes, thank you, Joël. So the next question is, could you please make an example of projects, programs currently supported by FPA SGAs?
So for that, we would refer you to the LIFE website. Eva already mentioned that the presentation will be shared, so you have a list of organizations that are currently funded with an operating grant. There are 34 organizations that are receiving an operating grant today. The list was in the presentation, but we also publish every year, and that's available on the LIFE program website, the list of organization. And then it's really up to you to Google the name of that organization and to look at what they do, because we finance their work program, basically. So by going to their website, you will see what we finance, because we finance their functioning costs, their operating costs.
Thank you, Joël. The next question is on the first page of the application. It is noted, please do not delete any instructions. On the cover page, it is noted, page 1, the gray important notice box should be deleted before uploading. Can you please clarify? I should open
Well, we'll not open
form.
the application form now because it will take a bit of time to dig through the system. But feel free to delete the box that is said to be deleted, but then anything else that comes afterward in the application form in terms of instruction, you just don't touch. So deleting the box on the first page will not make you gain space. And I think that's the logic behind it, is that we want to treat everyone equally. So the instruction given of not deleting instructions is in order for applicants not to gain space. And that's also why you have quite prescriptive instruction in terms of font size, font style, etc., etc. because we want it to be 90 pages in the case of the FPA and 45 pages in the case of SGA, without playing on margins, on font size, on different parameters, which would mean that for some we could go up to 20% more text. So this specific contradiction, I mean, it's apologies if that's the case, we'll need to verify it. But basically by deleting this box, you just need to make sure that you're not gaining one page, which you wouldn't, because the cover page will still be the cover page.
Thanks. Next question, may an NGO be located in one country only, and does size of the NGO matter? So it's 2 questions actually.
Yeah, I mean, that's a bit tricky in the sense that we ask applicant to demonstrate a structure and activities that are covering at least 3 EU member states, but it doesn't prevent this organization to be located in one country only. So it's a bit tricky to understand. So this rule of covering at least 3 EU member states, it means that you, as an organization, you have to have the capacity to demonstrate via your legal documents or the constitution of your board that you're mandated by member organizations or entities that are located in at least 3 EU member states or associated countries to the LIFE program. I should never forget to add that. That doesn't prevent you from being established in one country. And the size of the NGO, it doesn't matter, and it does matter at the same time, because we will basically, when looking at your work program and at your operational capacity, we'll make sure that whatever resources you have in human resources terms are sufficient to implement your work program, because we look at your operational capacity. And obviously there needs to be a match there. If you have a very ambitious work program, but you only have 2 staff members, we will question it. So there has to be a consistency between the 2. And then clearly as well, there is a financial capacity assessment that is performed on grants before we actually sign them. And this financial capacity assessment will determine whether you're capable from a financial point of view to implement the budget that you claim that you can implement. And if you're asking for a significant EU contribution and we see that your financial capacity doesn't match it, then it will become a matter.
Okay, next, thanks a lot, Joël. Next question is FPA related. Do contracts with fund, oh no, sorry, it disappeared. Because there was another one that was liked in the meantime. Okay, but we'll continue with this one. FPA related. Do contracts with funding sources need to be annexed to the application, showing the intellectual independence of the organization? Contracts with funding sources. So to justify the co-funding.
Independence? No, to justify the independence of the organization. So yes. As you have seen, the eligibility is established on the basis of the documents that are provided with a framework partnership agreement. So these are the annexes that were presented to you by Eva and that are spelled out in the core documents. If we don't feel sufficiently certain of our evaluation based on those documents, we will revert back to the applicant and ask them for other elements in order for us to assess this independence. But at this point in time, you're only asked to annex to your application form the mandatory annexes as specified in the core document. And if we feel that we need more, then we will revert back to you.
Thanks. Our financial year 25 begins on 1st of July 2024, and we would like to apply now for financial year 26 and 27. Is that also your understanding?
So your financial year, if you're looking at secure funding for your financial year 25 and 26, you would apply now. And we would urge you to do it because it's not certain that you would secure the grant. If you want to finance to secure financing for your financial year 27 and 2028, then you would apply to a call for proposal that is currently not open and that would be published in 2026 pending confirmation of the next multi-annual work program. Yeah, so and that it doesn't really matter when your financial year 2025 starts. So we have organizations that have a financial year 2025, in this case, that would start on the 1st of January 2025, and they would apply now. And we have organizations which financial year 2025 starts in March or April or sometimes July 2025. And then they would still apply now. Now, what would not be possible because your financial year we would basically if you apply now, we would start financing your next financial framework, your next financial year.
Exactly. Thanks a lot. May an NGO be located in one country only? But did we answer this question already?
Yes.
So please, thanks. Please clarify what you mean by strategy in code document operating grant FPA, page 20, evaluation criteria 3. You speak of the strategy as if it is the strategy of the applicant. Which strategy are you expecting from applicants?
So I think in this case, strategy really means your work program. So what do you foresee in your work program? And that's what we're referring to. That's what we're speaking about in the call document. And we're not dictating any strategy. We're looking at you presenting to us what your work program is and what is the strategy behind your work program. And that's what we're assessing in your application form.
Yes. Next question. Can accession states, Albania and Bosnia and Herzegovina, be part of the working group even if they are not listed in the call? Can Switzerland be part of the NGO partnership if they are relevant for the policy area? We are working on links.
So the organizations have to be established in an EU member state or in an associated country. And associated countries, I have listed them earlier on. Associated countries are associated countries to the LIFE program. So you really need to understand this terminology in the context of the LIFE program. And countries associated to the LIFE program for the time being are Iceland, Moldova, North Macedonia, and Ukraine. So Albania and Bosnia and Herzegovina are not associated to the LIFE program. So I don't know, I'm not sure what you're referring to when you're speaking about working groups. Organizations established in Albania and Bosnia and Herzegovina are not eligible under this calls for proposal. Switzerland isn't either. Furthermore, as was underlined early on, we're speaking here about mono-beneficiary grants. So we're not looking at partnership of NGOs. Organizations that apply alone. They don't apply as part of a partnership. So it could well be that we have NGOs that are active in Albania, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Switzerland, and many other countries that are very relevant to the policy areas covered by the LIFE program, but they're not eligible under this specific call for proposal. So if you're working on links, for example, you might want to have a look at the call for proposals under nature and biodiversity, where some of these countries, provided that you're able to justify it in your application form, could be eligible to take part in a partnership for a standard action program under nature and biodiversity working on links. But in this specific call for proposal, they're not eligible.
Thank you, Joëlle. Is it a problem if the co-finance is partially from outside of the EU? Example, membership payments or contributions from outside of the EU? This is a financial question.
It's financial, and it's not, I mean, we don't really look at the sources of your co-funding. You declare that you bring co-funding in. What we would need to be certain of is that it's the independency of the sources of contribution. So if we have a doubt in terms of your dependency, it's something that we might dig into further. So contributions from members that are in other countries would probably not be questioned. Funding that comes from the private sector sitting in third countries might be questioned in terms of your independence. But beyond that, no, the sources of the funding, whether it's from within the EU or outside of the EU, is not a determining factor.
Good. FPA and SGA related. Is the SGA budget also simplified? Does it mirror the FPA budget exactly, or is it more detailed, including various budget categories?
So I think for that, you need to understand that the FPA doesn't have a budget per se. In the application form for the FPA, you're asked to indicate what is your indicative forecasted budget, overall budget figures and EU contribution requests, but these are only indications in the framework partnership agreement. They give us guesstimates of what will be your needs and what are your foreseen expenditures. It's also an element that we use when assessing one of the award criteria for your framework partnership agreement in terms of value for money. But these are indications, there are no details. And you give us an amount for year 1, you give us an amount for year 2, you give us an indication of EU contribution for year 1 and EU contribution for year 2. But they're not determined, they're not fixed in the framework partnership agreement application form. In the specific grant agreement application form, there is a detailed budget. However, this detailed budget is simplified in the sense that we only ask you for the detail of personal costs. We don't ask you for the details of travels. We don't ask you the details for subcontracting, so on and so forth. And we only ask you for the details of personal costs plus a 50% flat rate. I will not go into more details because our colleague Lorenzina, who will speak later on, will really give you more information on this preparation of the budget and what do we define as personal costs.
Yes, thank you, Joelle. In fact, we have only 5 minutes left for this question and answer session. My organization has a structure and activities that are based in 7 EU countries. The umbrella organization is registered in the UK, but our members are based in EU countries and formed into national networks. Would we be eligible to apply?
No, you wouldn't. No,
it's
a
the applicant
no.
organization. If it's outside of the EU, unfortunately, can't.
Outside of the EU and of associated countries to the LIFE program, and the UK is not associated to the LIFE program until now.
Thank you. In operating grant FPA call document, page 18 speaks of priority order depending on theme of focus. In the call document, are the themes the same as the objectives of the call? Please clarify what you mean by themes. So if themes and objectives are the same, no. I suppose by themes we mean thematic areas.
Yeah, it's more the areas of intervention.
Yes.
I mean, we've spoken repetitively about the different pillars of the LIFE program, and then obviously those different areas of work. You can articulate them around different themes, but I mean, yeah, I wouldn't be too scholastic about the terminology. You define what your objectives are and what are your areas of intervention. And that's the themes are really the policy areas that you will be working on, basically.
Okay. Next question. I represent a newly founded non-profit organization based in one member state, but we do not yet have branches in other member states. How can we submit an application? Could we form an alliance with similar or complementary organizations?
Your organization is not mature yet to be eligible to this specific funding opportunity, unfortunately, because you're not yet able to demonstrate this intervention in 3 EU member state countries. So at this point in time, forming an alliance wouldn't suffice because you really need to be able to demonstrate in your legal documents that you already have that structure in place. So unfortunately, for the time being, you're not eligible.
Yes, thank you. To what extent can the applications of the FPA and SGA be similar in content? Is it possible to reuse parts of the FPA application in the SGA application, for example? Yes,
that's your yes.
I can answer.
Yeah,
yes,
and I guess
you can. Actually, that's why we try to structure the forms for FPA and SGA in a similar way, so that you can even take parts from the FPA from the first year of your work program and copy paste them into the SGA application. It's really to simplify, because we know that already it's a lot of work to apply to 2 calls. So we want to give you this simplification to be able to really take parts from the FPA application and copy paste them in the SGA application. But you don't have to. It's really up to you. But since then we evaluate what is the coherence between the SGA and the FPA, then it would make sense to do it this way. Next question: can subcontractors
that can be taken by Lorenzina in
yes,
FAQs after the budget?
Maybe we'll move it to the next session.
Yes.
Yes. SGA Part B: declare that the NGO doesn't receive any EU operating grants. can the NGO receive other EU-funded grants, e.g. from cost actions and other programs?
Yes, you can, absolutely. You can be running several EU projects at the same time, but you need to make sure in your accountancy that you are differentiating your costs. This EU-funded grants cannot be considered as co-funding for the operating grant, so that's an important element for you to bear in mind. And in order for you to be entitled to indirect costs under other EU-funded grants, you need to be able to really demonstrate what is covered by what. So the operating grant cannot be funding part of your action grant or your EU-funded grant under other programs, and vice versa. So you really need to have an accountancy that very clearly separates the two, but one doesn't
Thanks.
prevent the other. It could potentially impact on your eligibility to indirect costs under the action funded grants. That's something that depends very much on your accountancy system, but it doesn't prevent you from receiving grants from different sources.
Do I understand correctly that there will be a call for proposals for operating grants in 2026 covering the year 2027, or will it be covering more years?
So here again, I mean, it's very much similar to the question that was raised before. It's pending confirmation of the next multi-annual work program that is still to be adopted. Our intention is to launch a call for framework partnership agreement in 2026 that would be covering 2027 and 2028, pending confirmation. So it would be covering 2 years. This would lead us to the end of the current financial perspective.
Okay, thank you. Where can we find the eligibility criteria for the applicants? Does the applying organization need to be in existence for over 5 years or not?
So they're spelled out in the call documents. First step is to download the call documents and read them carefully. And no, there is no obligation to be in existence for over 5 years. There's no specification of the duration of the existence of the organization.
Yes, in the forms, if our channels and means used are the same for all the activities of the same work package, is it possible to include it as a section at the end of the work package?
I mean, that's really up to you to organize. I think we're not prescriptive over the work packages, with one exception, is that work package 1 has to be about organizational development. Because we want you to have an organizational development work package. Then the way in which you organize the rest is really up to you. We try to discourage having too many work packages because we find it then more difficult to organize. And when I say too many, 10, 15 becomes many work packages. This said, we're not prescriptive about it. So the way in which you organize your communication, whether it's for each work package or if you have one work package on communication, is really up to you.
I see that we are already a bit behind schedule, but maybe we can take a few more questions. I'm afraid there are no questions so far for our policy colleagues. Eligibility according to the call, it requests statutes activity reports of membership. Does it mean we have to provide those of our members to prove that we operate in at least 3 member states? If they need to provide the statutes and activity reports, not only the ones of the applicant organization.
Exactly. You provide your status, you provide your activity report, and it's based on that we see if you're mandated or not to represent and carry out activities in those 3 member states. And if we have doubt, as I said, we will come back to you, whether it's on your independence or your capacity to act in these 3 EU member states. But we're looking at you as the applicant organization, and that's really something that is important for you to understand. You have to have that capacity to rely on members, on associates, organization, on a network of organizations with whom you have established a legal working relationship and that have empowered you to represent them. But we're not looking at their statutes.
Right. How do you assess value for money, number of outputs, ambition, etc.?
So, I mean, as Eva was explaining in your proposal, you really asked to demonstrate your impact, and we look at what you're asking for in financial terms, and we're looking at your foreseen impact, and that's how we basically measure your value for money. And here I'm just going to reiterate what was said during a presentation this morning, but we're not looking at your political positions. That's really important for you to understand. Your political position is your political position, it's not ours. We're really looking at the activities that you're implementing. We're really looking at what you're forcing in terms of mobilization of your membership organizations. We're really looking at the number of working groups that you want to participate in, not necessarily the type of working groups that you're participating in, but that's really how we will be able to measure, what is the impact that you foresee and what is the amount that you're forcing to implement that. And that's how we're able to assess the value for money of what you're proposing.
Yes, I think we don't have much time, but I would like to maybe ask the question on policies to our colleagues from the Commission. At least they didn't stay for nothing. Do we need to show how we contribute to the newest EU policies only, or to any EU policy in this field, no matter its adoption date? If any of our Commission colleagues wants to give an answer. So is it important for you that they focus on the newest or policies, or the policies in the pipeline, or also oh, I see Peter is raising his hand. Peter
thanks very much for the
DG
question.
Climate Action.
I hope you can hear me. Thanks
Yes.
for the question. I mean, in climate policy, most climate policy, it's a fast evolving field. Most policy is fairly new. And so in a way, you have to keep pace with the evolving policy development and address those policies, which have, most of whom which have come online recently. But generally, of course, I mean, any EU policy is policy which is enacted and is in its place. So, you can also address any policy, and don't necessarily have to make a distinction between sort of the newest and maybe sort of past policies. I hope that answers the question for Klima.
Yes, I don't know if others want to add anything.
From my side, I can just subscribe what the colleagues said, in the sense that there is clearly maybe a stronger need on the newest policy if we look at the implementation and where we are in the period. Said that any EU policy that contribute to the overall objective, no matter its adoption date, but I'm also a bit struggling to I was reflecting to what the specific question could refer, and given that we have completely revised the overall framework on climate and energy in this moment, so I would say indeed any order would that is proven to be relevant would be relevant, but clearly the one that have been revised and now are the current framework are probably the most relevant.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
I see there is
just from DG Environment. Also it's the same. Like, of course, all policies are relevant, but the newest one are maybe even more relevant. But generally, all environmental policy can be addressed with the NGOs by the NGOs. Thank you. And maybe just to add, there is a sensor function as well. So that sensor function is really looking at new and emerging issues. And these one will be policies in the making. And it doesn't weigh very heavily in the award criteria, but it is there. So it's not something that should be disregarded.
Yes, I'm afraid that we are really running out of time. So I would like to thank our panelists for being here and for answering all our questions, especially Joël, who was very patient and answering a lot of questions on the application process. And I would like to thank also our participants for asking all the questions, and we hope that we could give you at least most of the answers that you were expecting.